The war had been raging for decades. Humanity's once proud cities were now ruins, scattered across the continents, a testament to the brutal alien forces that had ravaged the planet. The Tkora, ruthless, technologically advanced, and cold-hearted, had invaded Earth with one singular purpose: to annihilate the human race and claim Earth as their own. The devastation was unimaginable. From the skies to the oceans, the Tkora unleashed their might, and humanity had been pushed to the brink of extinction. In the final days of the war, Earth's leaders had gathered in the underground bunkers, desperate to find a solution to save what was left of humanity. Above, in the shattered remnants of Earth's once vibrant cities, the last pockets of resistance fought back with the last of their strength. Among them was Captain Mara Hale, a battle-hardened officer who had witnessed her comrades fall in every battle, each loss a wound on her soul. Yet she fought on. Humanity's best soldiers had been reduced to mere whispers in the wind. The Tkora had done their work efficiently, destroying most of Earth's military and government. Yet, there remained one final glimmer of hope. A group of soldiers known as the Fury Division, the last of Earth's elite warriors, had been chosen to carry out a mission that would either doom or save humanity. As Mara stood on the edge of a crumbling skyscraper in what was once New York, her eyes fixed on the approaching Tkora fleet in the sky. Massive warships hovered ominously in the clouds, their silhouette casting shadows over the wasteland below. The enemy had long since occupied Earth's orbit, their weaponized satellites keeping the planet under a constant surveillance. It seemed as though humanity's time had come. But as the last few remaining ships of the Fury Division engaged in a desperate dogfight above, Captain Hale could feel something shift. She couldn't explain it, but she knew. The humans weren't finished yet. "We've taken everything from them," Mara, her second-in-command, Lieutenant Jax Ridley, said, his voice rough over the comms. He was flying one of the remaining fighter jets, a relic from the old wars. The sky around them was filled with flashing lights, the distant explosions a testament to the chaos still unfolding. "Not everything," Mara replied, her voice cold but unwavering. "Not our will. Not our humanity. The Tkora may think they've won, but they don't understand us. We're not done yet." As they navigated through the wreckage of ruined buildings and devastated landmarks, Mara's mind raced with the last hope humanity had left: the enigmatic Project Reclamation. Hidden deep within the abandoned bunkers beneath Earth's surface was a weapon so powerful, it could turn the tide of the war in humanity's favor. The problem was, it had never been tested. No one knew if it would work. Mara knew the mission was a gamble, but if it failed, it would mean the end for every living human on Earth. Her eyes darted toward the fiery streaks of light above, the remains of a last Tkora assault. She wasn't about to let her people die without giving them a fighting chance. "Jax, meet me at the coordinates," she ordered, a steely resolve in her tone. "We're going in." The tension in the air was palpable as the remaining members of the Fury Division, 8 men and women, rallied around the final plan. Each of them had fought countless battles, endured unimaginable losses, and faced the brutality of the Tkora head-on. There was nothing left but to act, and act fast. As the squad descended into the depths of the Earth's wreckage, Mara's thoughts wandered to the faces of those who had fallen. The Earth was scarred, but not broken. The human spirit, stubborn and resilient, still burned with an unquenchable fire. They had lost so much, so many. But the war wasn't over. Not yet. Above them, the Tkora's massive ships began descending, their engines flaring as they prepared to finish what they had started. The Earth trembled beneath Mara's feet as she led her team through the remnants of human history. No matter how far Earth had fallen, she would make sure humanity's final stand would be a testament to their unyielding spirit. "We fight for Earth, for everyone who ever lived, and for those who will live," Mara whispered, more to herself than anyone else. "Today we take back our world." The Fury Division moved deeper into the forgotten tunnels of Earth's past, ready for the battle ahead. The time for survival was over. It was time for humanity's fiercest warriors to fight back. The cold, metallic air of the underground bunker seeped into Mara's lungs, the musty scent of decay mixing with the faint echoes of footsteps. She and the Fury Division descended deeper, following narrow, twisting corridors that had once been a hub of human ingenuity. Now, the tunnels were nothing more than forgotten veins of Earth's history, silent monuments to an era that seemed both distant and painfully close. The further they traveled, the more the walls seemed to close in, as though the Earth itself was swallowing them whole. Yet, Mara's focus never wavered. The weight of her mission pressed on her shoulders. This was their last chance, humanity's last breath. Behind her, Lieutenant Ridley's voice crackled over the comms, breaking the silence. "We're almost there, Mara. The coordinates are a few clicks ahead. The entrance to the lab should be just around the corner." Mara nodded, even though he couldn't see her. "Good. Everyone stay sharp." The others in the Fury Division moved in a tight formation, their weapons drawn and eyes scanning every dark corner. They were seasoned veterans, their training honed by years of brutal warfare, and yet none of them could shake the feeling that something was wrong. As they turned a final corner, the heavy doors of the facility loomed before them, ancient, rusted, and imposing. This was where Project Reclamation had been developed, the so-called last hope for humanity. It was said to be a weapon so advanced, so catastrophic, that it could erase an entire fleet of Toro warships in a single strike. The only problem? No one knew if it would work. "Stay ready," Mara muttered, her hand brushing against the cold, rusted surface of the door. She could feel the weight of history pressing down on her, but there was no time for hesitation. They had no choice now. This was it. With a series of beeps, the lock disengaged, and the door groaned open. A sterile, dimly lit corridor greeted them, its lights flickering faintly overhead. The tension in the air was suffocating. As they moved deeper into the facility, the silence was deafening. The hum of the generators, long abandoned, barely kept the power running. Dust covered every surface, evidence of the decades that had passed since anyone had last been here. "This place gives me the creeps," Sergeant Elena Cortez, one of the Fury Division's most formidable snipers, muttered. Her voice was low, but there was an edge to it. It was a rare moment of unease from the usually unshakable soldier. "I don't blame you," Mara replied. "We're not here for a history lesson. Let's get to the central control room." They continued forward, the floor beneath them creaking with every step. The deeper they went, the more it felt as though they were intruding on something ancient, something powerful, like the very heart of Earth itself. The facility seemed to pulse with a quiet, unnatural energy, a silent reminder of how far humanity had fallen. Finally, they reached the heart of the lab, the central chamber. The room was vast, its walls lined with databanks and holographic projectors that had long since gone dark. At the far end of the room stood a pedestal, upon which rested the weapon that could save them, or doom them all. It was a sleek metallic device, pulsing with an eerie blue light, its form smooth and alien in its design. Mara approached cautiously, her eyes narrowing as she studied the device. It didn't look like anything humanity had ever made, but then again, it wasn't human ingenuity that had created it. "This is it," Ridley said, his voice full of awe. "Project Reclamation." Mara's hand hovered over the device. For a moment, she simply stared at it, considering the weight of her decision. The Tkara fleet was moments away from obliterating Earth's last defenses. Time was running out. "Activate it," she ordered. But just as Ridley stepped forward to initiate the activation sequence, the facility's lights flickered violently, and an alarm blared to life. The sound was deafening, echoing through the chamber like a warning. "They know we're here," Cortez hissed, her hand moving to the weapon at her side. "They found us." Mara's heart skipped a beat. There was no way the Tkora could have tracked them here. Not unless... A sudden realization hit her like a freight train. The Tkora had been anticipating this very move. They had infiltrated the human resistance from within. "Move now." Mara barked. "Get that weapon online, Ridley. Everyone else, cover him." The sound of rapid footsteps echoed from the darkened corridors, and within seconds, the Fury Division was under assault. The doors to the central chamber slammed open, and a squad of Tkora soldiers poured into the room, their sleek, armored forms glinting in the dim light. The Tkora had found them, and they had come to finish what they started. Mara gritted her teeth, raising her weapon as the battle erupted in the heart of humanity's last hope. It wasn't just a fight for survival anymore. It was a fight for the future. And this time, humanity wasn't backing down. Blinding flashes of gunfire illuminated the darkness as the Fury Division sprang into action. Mara's heart pounded in her chest, but her mind was razor-sharp. She had fought in countless battles, but this one felt different. There was something primal about the way the Tkora charged in, their alien eyes glowing beneath their helmets, their movements swift and calculated. "Move, move," Mara shouted, her voice cutting through the roar of combat. "Ridley, you better get that thing powered up, or we're all dead." Lieutenant Ridley, his face tense with determination, hurried to the device at the center of the room. His hands flew across the control panel, working with the desperation of a man who knew that failure meant extinction. The soft hum of the weapon began to intensify, but the sounds of the Tkora approaching grew louder by the second. Behind Mara, Sergeant Cortez took up a sniper's position, her long-range rifle tracking the movements of the enemy with surgical precision. Her shots rang out, each one striking down a Tkora soldier with deadly accuracy. "Got your 6, Captain," she called over the comms. Mara barely had time to acknowledge her. Her focus was on the advancing alien force. The Tkora had better weapons, superior armor, and overwhelming numbers. But what they didn't have was humanity's resolve. "We're not going down without a fight," Mara growled, emptying a clip into the advancing enemy soldiers. The enemy alien warriors fell in droves, but they kept coming, relentless as a tide. The Tkora had the advantage of technology, but humanity had the one thing they would never understand: the will to fight for something greater than themselves. As Mara reloaded her rifle, a Tkora warrior leapt from the shadows, slamming into her with the force of a freight train. The impact sent her crashing to the ground, knocking the wind out of her. She gasped for air as the alien's gleaming blade glinted in the low light, poised to strike. But before the blow could land, a flash of movement caught her eye. Jax Ridley, who had finished his work on the weapon, threw himself between Mara and the Tkora warrior, taking the hit. His body jerked with the force of the blade, but his hands never left the control panel, and his voice remained steady. "It's done," he gasped, his face a mask of pain as he pulled the trigger on the device. The weapon thrummed to life with a low, almost imperceptible hum, but within seconds, its power surged. The ground shook beneath them, and the very air seemed to tremble with the force of the energy it unleashed. A pulse of blue light erupted from the device, surging outward, sweeping across the chamber in a blinding arc. The Tkora soldiers froze, their weapons faltering as the pulse of energy engulfed them. The light surged outward, flowing into their ranks and disintegrating their advanced armor in an instant. The air smelled of ozone and burned metal as the shockwave rippled outward, decimating the alien invaders before they even had time to react. Mara's heart raced as the pulse continued to expand, each wave of energy sweeping across the room like a cleansing fire. The Tkora soldiers disintegrated before her eyes, their alien forms turning to dust in the wake of humanity's final, desperate weapon. The weapon that would either save them or doom them all. As the light faded and the room grew eerily still, the remaining Fury Division members took a collective breath. The battle was over, at least for now. The weapon had done its job, but at what cost? Ridley collapsed to the ground beside the control panel, his body battered and bloodied from the alien strike. His face was pale, but he managed a grin, his eyes meeting Mara's. "I told you it'd work," he rasped, his breath shallow. Mara knelt beside him, her hand on his shoulder. "You've done more than any of us could have hoped for, Jax. Stay with us." His eyes fluttered for a moment, but he nodded weakly. "I knew we could win this." Before Mara could respond, her comms crackled to life. "Captain Hale, this is command. We've detected the pulse. The Tkora fleet is retreating." A wave of relief washed over her, but she didn't let her guard down. "Not yet. What's the status of the remaining forces?" Mara asked, her voice steady despite the exhaustion weighing on her. Most of the Tkora fleet is incapacitated. We've intercepted transmissions. They're pulling back to regroup, but we've got a chance to hit them while they're weak. Mara's gaze flicked toward the entrance to the chamber, her mind already racing with the next steps. The battle was far from over. The Tkora might be retreating, but they were far from defeated. There would be no easy victory in this war. Understood, Mara replied, her voice resolute. Prepare for the counterattack. We're not giving them a chance to regroup. Her eyes turned back to Ridley, who was now unconscious, but alive. The weapon had done its job, but the real test was ahead. The Tkora might have underestimated humanity's will to survive, but they hadn't seen the full force of humanity's resolve. We're not done yet, Mara muttered to herself. Not by a long shot. The silence in the aftermath of the Tkora's retreat was deafening. In the control room of the underground facility, only the low hum of the still active weapon echoed in the air. Mara stood over Jax Ridley, her fingers pressing gently against his pulse. She could feel the weak, but steady thrum of life. He wasn't gone yet, and as long as there was breath in him, there was hope. Cortez Ridley's hurt, Mara said, her voice calm but urgent. Get him out of here and get him stabilized. I'll handle the rest. Sergeant Elena Cortez, ever the calm presence in the midst of chaos, nodded without question. On it, Captain. She holstered her sniper rifle, moving quickly to help Ridley to his feet, though it was clear he couldn't walk under his own power. His injuries were grave, but not fatal, at least not yet. Mara turned toward the central control panel. They had just obliterated the Tkori's first wave of soldiers, but the fleet still loomed above Earth, and that was a threat that couldn't be ignored. The retreating alien ships would regroup, heal their wounded, and soon return, more prepared, more dangerous. She had no illusions. This victory was temporary. But if humanity was going to win this war, they needed to press the advantage. They needed to strike back. Mara, Cortez's voice came through her comms, her tone sharp and focused. We've got movement. The Tkora are pulling back in orbit, but they're communicating. I think they're preparing a counteroffensive. We need to hit them before they're ready to retaliate. Mara's eyes narrowed as she analyzed the data streaming on the terminal. The Tkora might have underestimated humanity's ingenuity and resilience, but they hadn't learned the one thing that had made Earth's soldiers so deadly. Humanity fights best when cornered. Can we get a lock on their command ship? Mara asked, her mind racing. Yes, Cortez confirmed. It's large, heavily shielded, but it's vulnerable in certain areas. I can guide you in. Mara's thoughts raced as she analyzed the options. A head-on strike would be suicidal. The Tkora command ship was a fortress, its weaponry capable of vaporizing Earth's last remaining warships with a single shot. No, this would require finesse. They couldn't just fight the Tkora. They had to outthink them. All right, we need every ship we can muster. No more waiting. Mara's voice was a low growl, filled with the fire of battle. Activate the remaining Fury Division fighters. I want all units ready for a tactical strike. We're hitting them where it hurts. As Cortez helped Ridley to the makeshift medbay, Mara's mind turned to the final solution. Project Reclamation had proven to be devastating, but it was only one weapon. What they needed now was strategy, a way to break the Tkori's will to fight. They had shown the aliens the price of underestimating humanity, but it would take more than a single strike to win this war. It was time to take the fight to them. The comms flared again, and the voice of Commander Caitlin Park, the last surviving commander of Earth's Central Defense, came through. Captain Hale, we've got a situation. The Tkora are trying to mobilize reinforcements. They've established a blockade around their command ship. They're coordinating a large-scale counteroffensive. If we don't stop them now, we'll be fighting from a disadvantage. Mara's gaze hardened. The Tkora had made a crucial mistake. They had believed Earth was finished, that humanity was nothing but an afterthought. But now, with the power of Project Reclamation on their side and the will to survive burning fiercely in their hearts, Earth's warriors would not back down. Mara, we're almost ready to launch the fighters, Park continued. We've got one chance at this. You got to take out their flagship and the command crew. Mara clenched her fists, the adrenaline surging in her veins. The Tkora had committed to a full offensive. They would strike back hard, and they would strike back fast. But Earth had something the Tkora never anticipated: fury. "We'll strike first, Commander," Mara said, her voice as cold and unwavering as the steel of her resolve. "We'll take down their command ship, and then we'll hit their reinforcements. If we take out the head, the body will fall." She turned to her team, now regrouping after the intense battle. The few remaining Fury Division soldiers were battered, their suits scarred from the previous skirmish, but their eyes still burned with that same unyielding fire. "You heard the orders," Mara said, her voice cutting through the tension in the room. "We strike fast, we hit hard, and we don't stop until their fleet is nothing but dust. The Tkora think they've won, but they've never faced anything like us. Let's remind them who's still standing." The tension in the underground command center was palpable. As Mara stood at the helm of the operation, the faces of the last remaining members of the Fury Division stared back at her, their eyes filled with the same resolve that had carried them through countless battles. But this would be their hardest fight yet. The Tkora had underestimated humanity before, and now they would pay the price. Mara's gaze swept across the faces of the warriors who would follow her into the storm. There was Cortez, still by Ridley's side, ensuring he would be able to fight again despite the severe damage he'd sustained. Ridley, though pale and bruised, had insisted on being part of the counteroffensive. His blood still burned with the same fire that had powered Project Reclamation. And then there was her team, veterans from every corner of Earth, each with a story of sacrifice, loss, and survival. They had endured so much, and yet they were still standing. Mara felt the weight of their hopes pressing on her shoulders, but she didn't flinch. She couldn't afford to. The Tkora were about to get a lesson in humanity's true strength. "We've got a window of opportunity," Mara said, her voice sharp as the hum of the battle preparations filled the room. "Cortez, Ridley, make sure all fighter jets are ready. I want every weapon primed, every system tested. If we're going in, we go in hard. No mistakes." "Understood," Cortez replied, her voice steady. She didn't need to be told twice. She was a master of precision, and in this battle, every shot would count. Ridley, despite his injuries, gave a thumbs up. "Let's finish what we started." Mara took a deep breath, knowing the next steps would decide Earth's future. If they failed, Earth would fall under Tkora rule, and all of humanity's sacrifices would be for nothing. But if they succeeded, "If we take down their command ship, we cripple their fleet," Mara said, her voice filled with unyielding conviction. "We hit fast, strike hard, and then we dismantle their reinforcements. We're not just fighting for survival, we're fighting for Earth's future." She turned toward the massive holographic map that now filled the center of the room, showing the Tkora fleet hovering just beyond Earth's orbit. Their command ship was enormous, a fortress in space, surrounded by an armada of smaller vessels that acted as both defense and reinforcement. The operation would be delicate. One wrong move, one missed shot, and the Tkora would unleash their full might. Mara's hand hovered over the launch sequence, and she could feel the weight of it. There was no turning back now. The sky outside the bunker was a sickly hue, the remnants of Earth's last war still burning on the horizon. As the last of the Fury Division's fighter jets ascended through the atmosphere, Mara and her team suited up, their faces reflecting the grim determination that had seen them through to this moment. The comms crackled to life. "All units reporting ready, Captain." "Launch sequence initiated," came Park's voice. "We've got your back. You've got one shot at this." Mara's pulse quickened as she climbed into her own fighter jet, the cockpit sealing around her like the jaws of a predator. The hum of the ship's engines filled the air as she ran the final checks. Her hands gripped the controls, her mind focused on the task ahead. "Fury Division, listen up," she said into the comms, her voice steady. "We take down their command ship, and we do it together. This is our home. Let's remind the Tkora what it means to challenge humanity." "Affirmative, Captain." Ridley's voice came through, calm and resolute despite the blood still staining his uniform. Let's give them a taste of humanity's fury. With a final surge of power, the fighter jets shot into the sky, breaking through Earth's atmosphere in a dazzling streak of light. The cold vacuum of space loomed before them, the vastness of it both terrifying and empowering. In the distance, the Tkora fleet hovered like a dark, menacing cloud, their massive command ship at its core. Target acquired. Cortez's voice came over the comms. I've got a lock on their shields. We're going to need precision strikes. Don't waste your shots. Mara's eyes narrowed as she plotted the path forward. The Tkora ship was massive, its hull bristling with weapons. If they attacked directly, they'd be obliterated before they could get close. The key was precision, dismantling their defenses and cutting through their shields without giving them a chance to retaliate. Let's hit them where it hurts, Mara said, her voice tight with focus. Target the engines, the shield generators, and their command tower. No mercy. The Fury Division jets dove toward the Tkora fleet with a blur of motion. It was a high-speed battle, every maneuver critical. Mara led the charge, her jet cutting through the void with lethal precision as she dodged enemy fire and evaded the Tkora ship's retaliatory blasts. Engines hit. We've got a breach on their port side. Ridley called, his voice filled with the excitement of battle. They're starting to lose power. Keep pushing. The Tkora responded in kind, their warships opening fire with devastating force. Mara's fighter shook under the barrage, but she held steady, weaving through the enemy's strikes. The blackness of space flashed with the intensity of the battle. She could see the Tkora command ship, now rocking with explosions, as they struck at its core. We're almost there, Mara. Cortez's voice crackled in her ear. One more pass, and we can hit the command tower. Mara's hand clenched the controls tighter. The stakes couldn't be higher. This was their moment. The Tkora's arrogance had led them to believe they could wipe out humanity. But humanity had a secret weapon. They would never stop fighting. With a roar of engines, Mara's fighter surged forward, locking on to the Tkora flagship's weak spot. The target was clear. If they hit this, the rest of the fleet would falter. Now, Mara shouted. The Fury Division launched their final wave of weapons. Precision strikes aimed directly at the heart of the Tkora ship. The moment the Fury Division's weapons fired, the universe seemed to hold its breath. Mara's heart pounded in her chest as her fighter screamed toward the Tkora command ship, her eyes locked onto the target, the massive, gleaming command tower at the center of the alien fortress. The explosion came in an instant, a deafening crackle of energy that shattered the silence of space. For a brief moment, everything was still. The shock wave of the blast radiated outward, distorting the stars themselves. Then the Tkora command ship shuddered violently, and the entire vessel lurched as if it were a wounded animal, its massive form tilting in space. The center of the ship, a vital nexus of their control systems, was crippled. Smoke and debris began pouring from the gaping hole the Fury Division had created. The alien ship, now vulnerable to further strikes. Mara didn't pause. She could already hear the sound of enemy ships preparing to retaliate, their weapons locking onto her squad. They were far from finished. In fact, this was only the beginning. Direct hit. Ridley's voice came over the comms, filled with fierce satisfaction. But they're not done yet. Their shields are still up. We need to finish the job. Mara's fighter shook as Tkora laser fire sliced through the void. She gritted her teeth, skillfully maneuvering her ship to avoid the worst of the barrage. We've got one shot at this. Hit their engines, disable their power systems. If we take out their movement, we can pick them apart. The Tkora fleet, though wounded, began to regroup, their ships moving in tight formations to retaliate. Mara knew they had to act before their enemy could re-establish control. The Fury Division fighters pressed forward, dodging fire and weaving between exploding debris as they approached the crippled command ship. Captain incoming. Cortez warned. They're sending reinforcements from their secondary ships. This is going to get messy. Mara's eyes scanned the battlefield, her mind calculating every move. She could see the flurry of Tkora ships surging toward them, determined to protect their flagship. The odds were mounting against them, But humanity had always been at its best when outnumbered. Take out the engines now, Mara barked, focusing on the shattered command ship. Everyone else, cover the flank. We can't afford to be surrounded. The Fury Division fighters split into two groups. Ridley, despite his injuries, led one squadron in a high-speed dive toward the Tkora engine core. Mara led the other, targeting the alien fleet's secondary vessels with a precision strike, picking off enemy fighters one by one as the chaos of battle engulfed the space around them. "Engines are exposed," Ridley said. "We've got a clear shot." With a loud, violent roar, Ridley and his team launched a barrage of high-powered torpedoes at the engine core of the Tkora command ship. The resulting explosion was immense, and the once pristine craft buckled under the devastating force. The ship trembled as its energy systems short-circuited, and its engines sputtered out, sending it tumbling through space. But just as the Tkora command ship began to drift into chaos, another enemy vessel, a colossal warship, far larger and more heavily armed than anything they had faced before, emerged from the shadows of the fleet. The Tkora had kept their secret weapon in reserve, and now it was unleashed upon them. "Captain, it's a dreadnought," Cortez shouted, her voice edged with disbelief. They were holding that back for the final strike. "It's coming straight for us." Mara's eyes widened as she scanned the enemy ship. The dreadnought was a beast of a warship, dwarfing their own fighters. Its weapons could decimate the entire Fury Division in seconds, and with the Tkora flagship crippled, it was clear that the aliens were pulling out all the stops. This was their last card. "We need to take it down before it can fire. All units, focus on that dreadnought," Mara ordered. "Cortez, Ridley, stay close. We're taking this one together." The Fury Division fighters broke formation, moving into attack positions, dodging enemy fire as the dreadnought's massive guns began to glow. A deep, ominous hum filled the comms. Its weapons were charging. Mara's mind raced. The dreadnought was formidable, but she had faced impossible odds before. This time, the advantage lay in her ability to think faster, act quicker, and outmaneuver their massive enemy. "We're going to hit its weak points," Mara said, her voice cold and steady. "Look for the engine core, shield generators, and weapon placement. If we disable the firing systems, we've got a chance." She led the charge, her fighters streaking toward the dreadnought's exposed flank, while Ridley and Cortez moved in close behind her, their weapons targeting the ship's outer defenses. The Tkora ship returned fire with brutal efficiency, its powerful lasers lancing out like the tendrils of a vengeful beast, narrowly missing Mara's ship by inches. "Take evasive maneuvers," Ridley called as his fighter was rocked by a blast. "If we don't keep moving, we're toast." Mara's fighter twisted and spun, narrowly avoiding another blast, and she could hear the crunch of her ship's hull as debris from a nearby explosion rattled through it. She pushed the engines harder, gritting her teeth as the deadly fire from the dreadnought closed in. The Fury Division wasn't just fighting for their lives now. They were fighting for humanity's future. They had no choice but to press on. Mara's heart pounded as she locked onto the dreadnought's engines, firing everything she had. The first few shots bounced off the enemy's shields, but her next barrage hit a weak spot, right in the core of the ship's power grid. "Direct hit," Ridley shouted, his voice filled with exhilaration. The dreadnought lurched, and the energy output from its weapons began to sputter and fade. But the Tkora weren't giving up easily. "We've got one more shot at this," Mara said, determination hardening in her chest. "Keep firing now." With one final all-out assault, the Fury Division's combined firepower focused on the dreadnought's critical weak points. A flash of brilliant light erupted from the heart of the alien vessel, followed by a shockwave that rippled through the battlefield. For a moment, everything went quiet. Then, the dreadnought's massive form began to break apart, a shower of debris scattering across the vastness of space. The battle was far from over, but for the first time, it seemed like the Tkora might finally understand. Humanity wasn't just surviving anymore. They were fighting back. They were winning. The battlefield was a swirling mass of chaos and destruction, but in the midst of it, there was something unmistakable. The Tkora fleet was faltering. Their dreadnought, once a symbol of invulnerability, was now a fragmented husk drifting through the void, consumed by its own fiery explosion. The shock waves of its destruction rippled outward, striking down several smaller Tkora vessels in its wake. For the first time since the invasion began, the odds seemed to tip in humanity's favor. The enemy was retreating, their forces in disarray, their once immense arrogance shattered like glass. "Look at that," Ridley said, his voice hoarse but filled with awe as he surveyed the debris of the Tkora dreadnought. "We just took down their flagship and their biggest warship. They've got to be reeling." Mara's grip tightened on the controls of her fighter. She couldn't let herself get distracted. Not yet. There was still more to do. The Tkora weren't finished. If anything, this would make them more desperate. And desperate enemies were often the most dangerous. "We've won a battle," Mara said, her voice cold with resolve. "But the war's far from over. Keep your heads on a swivel, Fury Division. We're not out of the woods yet." Just as Mara's words left her lips, the comms crackled with an urgent message. It was from Commander Park. "Mara, we've intercepted a transmission from their flagship before it went down. It looks like the Tkora have a contingency plan. They're not pulling back. They're preparing to launch their final weapon." Mara's blood ran cold. If the Tkora had something even more deadly than the dreadnought, there was no telling how much damage it could inflict. But there was no time to waste on fear. "We need to find out what that weapon is, and fast," Mara replied, her voice steely. "Park, coordinate with all remaining forces. I want every ship scanning for that launch. Ridley, Cortez, head back to base and get the intel. We need a solution now." "Understood, Captain," Ridley said, though his voice was strained, clearly still recovering from the battle. Cortez, ever the efficient strategist, was already charting a course back to their base. "We'll find it, Captain. You've got my word." As the Fury Division fighters veered off to complete their mission, Mara's mind raced. The Tkora had held one last card in their hand, and now it was time to see what it was. The invasion had been brutal, but this was their chance to finish it. If they could eliminate the Tkora's last weapon, Earth would be free. But what kind of weapon could the Tkora possibly have that could turn the tide of this war? Mara's thoughts were interrupted as Park's voice came back through the comms. "Mara, we found it. The Tkora are deploying something they call the catalyst. It's not a weapon in the traditional sense. It's more like a biological catalyst. It'll unleash a wave of destruction, not just through conventional firepower, but by rapidly mutating the DNA of any life it comes into contact with. The Tkora have found a way to manipulate human biology. They're going to use it to take over our planet, one person at a time." The cold weight of the news hit Mara like a punch to the gut. The Tkora weren't just looking to conquer Earth. They were planning on transforming it into something entirely alien. "How soon?" Mara demanded, her voice sharp and desperate. "How soon until they launch this catalyst?" "Minutes, Captain," Park said, urgency lacing her voice. "It's already primed for launch, and they're sending it toward Earth's atmosphere. If it's deployed, the entire human population could be infected in a matter of hours. It would be an irreversible change. Earth would be lost." Mara didn't hesitate. Her mind clicked into overdrive. She could almost hear the ticking clock in her head, counting down to humanity's doom. "We can't let that happen," Mara said, her voice filled with quiet fury. "Park, give me coordinates. Ridley, get ready to launch an assault. We're taking out that catalyst." Cortez's voice cut in. "Captain, the catalyst is heavily guarded. We'll need to fight our way through a heavily fortified Tkora base, but we can't let that stop us. The Tkora have made their last mistake." Mara's mind was already running through the options. The catalyst had to be destroyed before it hit Earth's atmosphere. It wasn't just a weapon. It was the future of humanity on the line. She could already feel the weight of the mission bearing down on her, but there was no turning back now. "Park, get us a clear shot at the Tkora's launch coordinates," Mara said, her voice grim. "I'll lead the assault. We'll take out the guards and destroy the catalyst. Ridley, get ready for a precision strike. This is it. Everything we've fought for comes down to this." The comms crackled with the agreement from Ridley and Cortez. The Fury Division was ready, and they were not about to let humanity's final chance slip away. The Fury Division fighters moved into position, the sky above Earth now alive with flashes of space battle. Tkora ships were scrambling, trying to intercept them, but the human resolve was unyielding. They were coming for the catalyst. Mara's fighter lead the charge, her heart steady despite the fear in the pit of her stomach. This was it, the last stand. She could see the Tkora base now, nestled within the clouds of their shielded atmosphere. It was massive, a twisted fortress of technology that seemed as much a part of the planet as it was foreign to it. The catalyst would be inside, and with every passing second, the clock was ticking. "Lock on to the base's vulnerable points," Mara said, her voice tight with focus. "Hit it fast and hard. No time to waste." Her team nodded in silence. They knew what was at stake. As the Fury Division fighters descended into the heart of the enemy's stronghold, Mara's mind was razor-focused on the mission ahead. She wasn't just fighting for survival anymore. She was fighting for the future of humanity, and nothing, not even the full might of the Tkora fleet, would stop her now. The Fury Division plunged into the depths of the Tkora base with a single unified purpose: to destroy the catalyst before it could bring the nightmare of Tkora domination to life. The massive fortress loomed ahead, an almost impossible structure of alien design, sprawling with deadly defenses and ominous energy fields that pulsed through the atmosphere. Mara's heart raced as her fighters screamed toward the Tkora base. Behind her, Ridley and Cortez followed close, their fighters matching her every move in perfect synchronization. The moment they breached the base's outer defense perimeter, enemy fire lit up the sky, laser blasts slicing through the air. The fury of Tkora ships and ground defenses erupted in a violent welcome. "We've got incoming. Hold tight," Ridley barked over the comms, his voice crackling with urgency. His fighter spun to avoid a barrage of fire, narrowly evading a direct hit that left the air vibrating with the aftershock. Mara gritted her teeth. They were deep inside enemy territory now, and the stakes couldn't be higher. The catalyst was within reach, but so were the Tkora's deadliest weapons. Time was running out. "Park, how much time do we have left before launch?" Mara asked, her voice tight with anxiety. "Less than 20 minutes, Park replied. "The catalyst is almost at the final activation point. If you don't disable it in time, it'll be too late." Mara's grip tightened on the controls. The base was a labyrinth of alien architecture, designed to confound and disorient. Massive spires of metal twisted upwards, and Tkora ships flanked every possible escape route. But they weren't about to back down. "We can't afford to waste any more time," Mara said. "We need to breach their core defenses and get to the catalyst chamber now." Her words sent the Fury Division into overdrive. They were moving fast now, cutting through the enemy's defenses with ruthless precision. Each fighter was a blur of motion, weaving through waves of Tkora fire, dodging blasts from below while returning fire that decimated the base's outer defenses. "Target the shield generators," Cortez called over the comms. "If we don't bring them down, we'll never reach the catalyst." "On it," Ridley replied. "Let's clear the way." The Fury Division fighters descended lower, their weapons finding their marks as they blasted apart Tkora defenses. Explosions erupted in the sky, shaking the ground beneath them. The air was thick with the acrid scent of burnt metal and the sharp sting of ozone. Mara could see it now, the heart of the Tkora base. The catalyst was housed deep within a colossal structure at the center of the fortress, a massive tower of shimmering alien technology, guarded by Tkora soldiers and automated drones. The closer they got, the stronger the enemy resistance became. "We've got company," Ridley shouted, his voice laced with intensity. A swarm of Tkora fighters appeared from behind the towering spires, their weapons locked on the Fury Division squadron. Mara's pulse quickened. "Focus on the catalyst. We need to keep pushing forward." The battle was brutal. Each blast that hit their ships rocked Mara's fighter, rattling her bones. Yet they pressed on, taking out one Tkora ship after another. They couldn't afford hesitation. Every second counted. "Shield generators down," Cortez announced. "We've got an opening." Mara's heart surged. They were close. So close. Ridley, Cortez, stay with me, Mara commanded. We're going in. The final push was a blur of adrenaline and raw determination. They blasted through the outer defenses, tearing apart any Tkora soldiers or drones that dared to challenge them. As they reached the entrance to the central chamber, Mara saw the catalyst, a glowing sphere suspended in an intricate, glowing lattice of alien energy. It hummed with a power unlike anything she had ever seen. But they weren't alone. A battalion of Tkora elites appeared, their armor shimmering in the dim light of the chamber. The guards were formidable, giant, hulking warriors, armed with advanced energy weapons and shields that glowed with a menacing light. Get ready, Ridley yelled, already locking onto the nearest Tkora warrior. Mara wasted no time. Her ship fired a barrage of high-energy blasts, hitting the elites head-on, but their shields absorbed most of the damage. The Tkora soldiers advanced, weapons raised, ready to make their last stand. Mara's fighter moved in closer, dodging incoming fire as she concentrated on the catalyst. Her mind raced, trying to come up with a strategy to disable the device before the Tkora elites could overwhelm them. Cortez, can you find a weak point in the catalyst design? Mara asked, her voice strained with urgency. I'm on it, Cortez replied. I'll target the power relay, see if I can overload it. We've got one shot at this. Mara didn't question her. She knew that Cortez had the skills to pull it off. But even as they prepared for their final assault, a chilling voice rang out across the comms, loud and unmistakable. You think you can stop us, humans? The voice was cold, alien, dripping with arrogance. The catalyst is only the beginning. With this power, we will reshape your world into something far greater than you can imagine. You will be the tools of our empire. Mara's grip on the controls tightened, but she refused to let fear cloud her thoughts. The Tkora had underestimated humanity. Now, the tables had turned, and she wasn't about to let them win. We're not your tools, Mara said, her voice filled with quiet fury. We are humanity, and we fight back. At that moment, the final pieces of the puzzle fell into place. Cortez's fighter released a barrage of energy blasts, striking the catalyst power relay. The resulting explosion was immense, sending shock waves through the chamber and causing the alien structure to tremble violently. For a brief, terrifying moment, Mara thought they had failed. But then, the catalyst began to falter, its energy field flickering and sputtering as it lost power. The hum of its devastating energy died down. Direct hit, Ridley shouted, his voice filled with relief. It's going offline. The Tkora soldiers, seeing their weapon fail, were thrown into chaos. They attempted to regroup, but their morale shattered. Without the catalyst, the Tkora forces lost their edge. Mara felt a wave of victory wash over her. The catalyst was no longer a threat to Earth. The battle was far from over, but the turning point had come. Park, the catalyst is down, Mara said, her voice steady but filled with exhaustion. We've bought humanity some time. Great work, Captain, Park responded, her tone light with relief. The Tkora won't be able to recover from this. You've won. But Mara's victory was bittersweet. She knew the war wasn't finished. The Tkora would still fight to the bitter end, but for the first time, humanity had the upper hand. We'll see this through to the end, Mara said quietly, her gaze hardening as she surveyed the destruction around her. We're not just fighting for survival anymore. We're fighting to take back our world. The catalyst was down, but the war was far from over. As the Fury Division regrouped and moved to re-establish their positions, the remnants of the Tkora forces began to rally. They still had an impressive fleet in orbit, and their ground forces, though shaken by the loss of their ultimate weapon, were not easily defeated. Mara's heart pounded in her chest as she surveyed the battlefield from her fighter. The Tkora were retreating, regrouping, and their last defense was beginning to take shape, a final, desperate attempt to prevent the total collapse of their invasion. Captain, we're not out of the fire yet, Ridley's voice crackled over the comms. The Tkora have started activating their planetary defense systems. It's like they're preparing for an all-out offensive. Mara's jaw tightened. They were preparing to make their last stand, on Earth itself. "We need to get to the Tkora Command Center," Mara said, her voice firm. "If we can disrupt their command and control, we'll cripple their ability to fight back." "Already on it," Cortez responded. "I'm identifying the key power nodes for their planetary defenses now. I'll provide a route for you." Mara nodded, even though Cortez couldn't see her. "Good. Ridley, I need you to lead a distraction. Make them chase you. We're not giving them any chance to regroup." Ridley's voice was filled with determination. "Understood, Captain. Time to make them regret ever setting foot on our world." As the Fury Division fighters broke into formation, Mara's mind raced. The Tkora had already lost the catalyst, but their sheer numbers and advanced technology made them a threat unlike anything humanity had ever faced. They had to keep the pressure on. If the Tkora were allowed to reorganize, the war could drag on for years. This was their chance to finish it, once and for all. They moved swiftly, their fighters carving through the Tkora defenses, but every step was met with fierce retaliation. The Tkora weren't ready to admit defeat. Their fighters surged forward, their ships darting in and out of attack patterns with brutal efficiency. "Captain," Ridley said, his voice tight with intensity, "I've got them right where I want them. I'm drawing their forces toward the east. Cover my 6. Mara didn't hesitate. "You've got it, Ridley. We'll hit them from above." The Fury Division split into 2 groups, moving in tandem as they ascended higher into the atmosphere. Ridley, in his trademark reckless style, led a daring charge directly into the heart of the Tkora fleet, making himself the perfect target for the enemy. His fighter spun and dodged as the Tkora fighters chased him, unable to land a single hit. But that was exactly what they wanted. Every moment Ridley kept the enemy's attention was another moment for Mara and the rest of the squadron to make their move. "Ready to move on their command center," Cortez reported. "We're nearing their central tower. I'll need a clear shot to disable their core systems." Mara's fighter shot forward, a streak of light against the darkness of space. She didn't look back as Ridley led the charge, using himself as a decoy to draw the Tkora fleet toward him. The plan was risky, but it was their only chance. They dove low, slipping through the outer layers of the Tkora defense grid. Mara's pulse quickened as she neared the enemy's central command tower, a gleaming structure of alien metal, pulsing with deadly energy. The ground beneath her rumbled as she fired a volley of high-powered blasts toward a central energy conduit. Her target was the Tkora-S planetary shield generator, a massive structure that protected their forces from any Earth-based counterattacks. The first blast hit its mark. A violent explosion rocked the command center, sending debris cascading outward. Mara's heart skipped a beat as the energy shield flickered, losing power. "Shields down. We're in," Cortez shouted. "Keep going," Mara urged. "We need to finish this now." She saw Ridley's fighter darting in and out of the enemy fleet, drawing them away from the heart of the battle. Her squadron was close now, and with the shield down, they had a clear path to the core of the Tkora command center. But the Tkora weren't ready to give up without a fight. From all sides, the enemy began to close in. The Tkora fighters regrouped, swarming toward the Fury Division's position. "This is getting too hot," Ridley said, his voice tense as he evaded another barrage of enemy fire. "We're not going to last much longer if we don't wrap this up." "We're almost there," Mara replied. Her fingers flew over the controls as she coordinated with her team. They had to disable the Tkora-S command center before it could launch a counterstrike. Suddenly, the Tkora fleet deployed a final wave of reinforcements, a cluster of heavily armed warships that arrived just as Mara and her squadron entered the command center's final defense grid. The enemy ships were massive, with hulls bristling with weapons. "Brace for impact," Cortez shouted. "They're coming in hot." The Fury Division fighters darted and dodged as Tkora weapons lit up the sky. The firepower was overwhelming. Blasts rang out, hitting Mara's fighter multiple times, rattling her cockpit as the ship groaned under the strain. "Captain, we need cover," Ridley called, his fighter spinning through the chaos. Mara gritted her teeth. There was no time for hesitation. "Everyone, focus fire on the warships." Take them down now. It was all or nothing. The Fury Division fighters released everything they had: high-powered torpedoes, laser bursts, and heavy cannons. Ridley led the charge, weaving between the incoming fire and finding weak spots in the alien warship's armor. One by one, the massive ships exploded in a flurry of sparks and debris, but not without cost. The Fury Division fighters took hits, their shields flickering dangerously. Cores exposed. Cortez shouted, "I'm going in." Without a moment's hesitation, Cortez launched a devastating barrage of firepower at the Tkora Command Center's core, striking the central nexus of the ship's power systems. The explosion was monumental. The Tkora Command Center, once a gleaming structure of alien invincibility, crumbled before them, its glowing energy fields extinguished in a wave of cascading destruction. "We did it," Ridley said, his voice filled with disbelief. Mara's heart raced. It wasn't over yet, but this was the moment they had been waiting for, the final blow. "Return to base," Mara ordered, her voice steady, though her mind was still processing the scale of what had just happened. "We've won the day, but the war is far from finished." The Tkora had been dealt a crushing blow, but Mara knew that the battle for Earth wasn't over. Not yet. They had taken down their command center, but the enemy forces were still out there. There was more to do, and Mara would see it through to the end. Humanity was not done fighting. The dust of battle hung thick in the atmosphere as the remains of the Tkora Command Center burned in the distance, their fleet in disarray. The Fury Division's fighters, battered but resolute, ascended from the now dying stronghold. Mara's heart raced, but her mind remained focused. The war wasn't won yet, not by a long shot. The Tkora had proven time and again that they were relentless. But humanity had shown something even more powerful: unity and resilience. Mara's comms crackled to life, and Commander Park's voice rang out, cutting through the static. "Mara, we've intercepted communication from the Tkora fleet. They're pulling back. It looks like they're in full retreat." Mara allowed herself a moment of disbelief. The Tkora, the invincible invaders, were retreating? After everything they'd thrown at Earth, after all the bloodshed, they were leaving? "Are you sure?" Mara asked, her voice skeptical but hopeful. This could be a feint. They could be reorganizing for a last strike. "I've got confirmation," Park replied. "We've received signals from multiple Tkora ships. They're heading for deep space, back toward their homeworld. The catalyst failed, and now they've lost control of their forces. This is it, Captain. We've won." Mara closed her eyes for a moment, allowing the weight of the words to sink in. Earth had won. Against all odds, against the overwhelming power of an alien empire, humanity had fought back. But that victory hadn't come easy, and it had come at a cost. Many brave men and women had fallen, including some of her closest friends. They would not be forgotten. "We've only won the battle, not the war," Mara said softly, knowing that the journey wasn't over. There would be rebuilding, reconciliation, and perhaps even more conflict in the future. But for now, humanity had gained something far more precious: hope. As her squadron regrouped in Earth's orbit, she could see the wreckage of the Tkora warships drifting silently in space, a silent testament to the fierce battle that had just unfolded. The enemy fleet, once so mighty, was now reduced to a shadow of its former self. Ridley's voice broke through the silence. "Hey, Mara, you seeing this?" His tone was lighter, more relaxed than before. "The Tkora are running scared. I think we just broke their spirit." Mara gave a faint smile, the exhaustion of the battle still lingering in her bones. "You're right, but we're not done yet. We need to make sure they don't come back." "Agreed," Cortez added. "But I think it's safe to say we've earned a little celebration." Mara looked at the remains of the Tkora fleet, and a small, bittersweet smile tugged at the corner of her mouth. "One step at a time. Let's get back to Earth first. We've got a world to rebuild." The Fury Division fighters veered off toward Earth, their mission complete, for now. Earth had won its greatest battle, but the true cost of the war had yet to be fully understood. There would be no victory parade, not yet. The sacrifices of the fallen would weigh heavily on the survivors, but there would be time for mourning later. As the fleet entered Earth's atmosphere, a new sense of calm began to settle over the survivors. The noise of battle, the tension in their hearts, had all but disappeared. Earth was still standing, and humanity was still here. Mara's thoughts turned inward as she watched the blue and green orb below. Earth. Home. It would take years to rebuild, years to restore what was lost. But humanity had shown the universe one undeniable truth. They would fight for their world. They would fight for each other. And they would win. Epilogue. The dawn of a new era. Months passed in the wake of the Tkora retreat. Humanity's forces had not only defended Earth, but had pushed the invaders back into the cold depths of space. With the defeat of their command structure, the remaining Tkora warships surrendered or fled. Earth's military, bolstered by the lessons learned in the war, began to rebuild what had been lost. Humanity began healing, and the survivors became a symbol of hope to a universe that had doubted their survival. Mara stood at the helm of a new vessel, watching the stars in the distance. Her journey had not been easy, and the scars of the war would remain with her forever. But she knew something now. Humanity had the strength to endure, to rebuild, and to rise from the ashes of destruction. Her eyes turned back to the blue orb below, her home. "We'll never stop fighting," she said softly, her voice steady. "We'll fight to protect this world, and we'll make sure no one ever threatens it again." A new era had begun, one in which humanity's brightest warriors had shown that, when all seemed lost, they would fight back. And in that fight, they had won not just a battle, but a future.